Pleasure to see you, Tom.
Good to see you, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Here I be.
Hey, Eric.
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
So, Tom, I first met you in 1974.
That's right. I think so.
Yeah.
To put things in perspective, it wouldn't surprise me if some members of our committee may not have even been born then.
Yeah, well, that means that my relationship with Eric has lasted longer than Roe v. Wade, right? Almost.
Almost.
Almost, yeah.
It
It is outlasted it.
It will have, provided we both stick around for at least another year or so.
I don't believe either of you is planning on going anywhere because you both joined a committee that's going to likely last longer than that.
That's right.
Eric did it by choice. You did it by vocation.
That's
Yeah.
right. Right.
For the others of you who are joining us, Joseph and Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. Glad.
We'll be getting started here in just a few minutes. At that time, I'll also turn on live transcript as well.
Sure.
Okay, we even have a quorum. We have a quorum at the start time. Tom, how unusual is this? As we get started, anyone want to volunteer to take minutes?
I could do it.
Yeah, I can also do it. Dan, either Eric or I.
Or if you both want to, then we can merge it. You know, given relative expertise, Eric, if you want to, then I'm thinking send your notes over to Anne, then she can get them into a format that's consistent with other things. That might be a good way to team up.
Yep. Sounds good.
I was secretary to the Charter Review Committee. So I have some practice in it. I have a way I wanted to do things. So I guess I'll do it for a couple of meetings and compare with you about it because I got a lot of things put down, but I didn't get a couple others.
Now, the good news is that's part of why we have the ability to review them.
Yeah.
Okay. Transcription has now been enabled. welcome everyone. It's 6 o'clock. And I know that a couple of people who have joined us have another meeting at 7 o'clock because our esteemed town council actually has a meeting at 7 o'clock, although I'm feeling that this meeting will probably be both shorter and may even be more fun. We'll have to see. The jury will be out on that one. We'll let the lawyers figure out which one they prefer afterwards, since those are the ones that are leaving for that other meeting at 7. So welcome everyone. I'm Dan Lieber. It's been a pleasure to send notes to you, and thank you for all volunteering to join the bylaw review committee. It is going to be a fun ride for those of us who are going to continue going through this path. We've got a rather fun set of events waiting for us as we go through the bylaw review. I actually had the privilege of being on the last bylaw review committee. Bob Vincent, who is now our town council liaison, was also on that committee as well, and several others had attended various meetings from time to time. And we did a pretty thorough review of the bylaws. There's also more work to be done, and with that, we also get a new cycle. So that's some of the different pieces. The purpose of this meeting, as I see it, and it is really just organizational, just so that we can all kind of introduce ourselves, get a little bit of background on each other, and kind of get ourselves organized. In terms of requirements, we will need to have a chair, so we'll have to do an election of that. Do a very quick expectations at meetings, short primer on open meeting law, just as it relates to posting deliberation. I'm aware for many people on here, this is their first time volunteering on a formal committee. And so we'll have that. We'll go over the stated purpose of the bylaw review committee as it is written into the charter. And we'll try to figure out when we want to try to set up meetings going forward. I don't expect that we will have all of that completed, certainly not the scheduling of meetings completed by the end of the hour, but we should at least have an idea of, okay, what general preferences are, and we will try to accommodate for that. So first, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining on Zoom. It's on Zoom at the request of the current town council that all meetings of groups are done by Zoom so that people have the ability to join from the public, and it's all recorded. In addition, we have the live transcript turned on. So the town actually sets up the Zoom meeting, and then from there, we go ahead and do that. So I'm not sure if there's anyone from the public. We do have a formal agenda as well that was posted. If there's anyone from the public that wants to contribute something at this point, we can certainly take that. Otherwise, we will move that towards the end of the meeting itself. So seeing none, that brings us to the next item well, let's go over the introduction so we can actually learn who everyone is. And when you're not speaking, if you can put on mute, that would be helpful. I do know how to mute people if necessary, and really prefer not to cut people off if at all possible by Zoom, although it does have the ability to do that, which is really, really nice from time to time. So quick little background on myself. Dan Lieber, I was on the bylaw review committee of 2017. I was technically appointed in 2016, and we finally dissolved in 2019. We did a thorough review of the bylaws except for zoning. We accepted that out. And I'm not a lawyer by training. I do not pretend to play one on Zoom. I do not pretend to play one on TV. I understand how a lot of different things work in the town. I was formally elected to the school committee. I've served on several appointed committees for about almost 20 years now in the town. Lived here for a bit longer than that as well. So it's going on about 30 years that I've been in town. Love where we live, have a family that lives here. We've been through the schools, and it's a really great place. And my goal here is to make it so that others can have a really great place to live, learn, explore, work, and other things as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to the person that I see next in the list here. And then if you once you have it, if you can just pass it off to someone else that's on the list, I'll try and keep track of who's done introductions. Try to say, as I see it, where you are, what your vocation is, especially if it is as a lawyer that deals with zoning or not, what your primary interest is, and something interesting about yourself. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Eric since you're next on the list.
Me?
You're the Eric. Yep.
Ancestry. I'm a descendant of John Benton, who worked behind the blast furnace at the Saugus Iron Works in 1645. So I've been around, my ancestors have been around this area for some time. I was on the Cable Advisory Committee and wrote 16 reports and became interested in the annual town reports, and I hope for a larger one. And I attended the meetings of the Charter Commission and was a member of the 2 charter review committees. And I'll stop there. I do have a background agenda, but I'll mention it later. Over.
And let's pass it to Alexandra.
Hello, I'm Alex, and I have 3 kids that are going through the school system right now. And I was born and raised in Wakefield, have lived here 36 years. A little bit about me, my background is in higher education and student affairs. But prior to that, I was actually the chair of rules for Salem State. So I do have a little bit of experience working with bylaws and kind of how that goes, just not any at this level quite yet. So I'm excited to be here and to learn. And the next I see is Joseph.
Hello, everybody. Joe Pride. I'm on Lowell Street. I am currently serving on the ZBA in my 2nd term. The chairman thought it would be a good idea to have one of us on there, so that's why I applied. I have 2 kids. One 17. I'm actually in Florida now. He drove down, so I drove down with him. He's visiting his friend down in Miami. So, and I also have a 6-year-old that's at the Deliberation. I've been in Wakefield now 9 years, and I own my own construction company. So there's that, I guess, on the zoning laws. I guess we can talk about that later. But that's one of the other reasons I was interested on that, join the board. There's a couple zoning bylaws that I wouldn't mind diving into, but other than that, that's a quick little background on me. Next person I see, I think, is Tom Mullen.
Hi, I'm Tom Mullen. I'm the town council. I'm not a member of your committee as such because I'm the hired help, but I am a Wakefield resident, proud graduate of Wakefield High from 75. That's 1975. And looking forward to working with everybody. And I'm not sure who's the next.
Next I've got is Catherine.
Everyone, it's great to meet you all. I'm Catherine Howitt. I have been a resident in Wakefield since 2017, I think, 2018, 4 or 5 years. I have 2 kids. I have a 6-year-old also at the Kildare and a 3-year-old. And I professionally, I work in health policy. So I direct the policy institute that's focused on the Mass Health program. This is my first time volunteering on a committee in Wakefield. So I'm really excited to get involved here. I love this town and I'm thrilled to be involved. And I have a little bit of experience on a town committee. When I used to live in Cambridge, I was on the bike committee there. So, and I think the next person that I see in my line here is Anne.
Hi, my name's Ann Santos. I am not quite a townie because I moved here when I was 5, but I've been here over 50 years. So I think I've got some Wakefield cred, proud grad of class of 1984. I have 2 kids, 19 and 21. They both went partially through the Wakefield system. I just finished my 9th year as a town council, Wakefield Town Council member, and decided not to run again, and had been on Board of Health the 6 years before that. Also as a member of the Charter Commission, so have some experience on these committees. And I'm a lawyer by trade, interim Dean of Students at Suffolk Law School. So I think, know how to read a law, hopefully. Next, Bob Vincent.
Hello, I'm Bob Vincent. I just got elected to the town council 2 months ago. I think it was 2 months ago yesterday. I'm a retired Navy attorney. I spent 26 years on active duty in the Navy. I moved to Wakefield in 2014. And I will tell you that my service on the Bylaws Review Committee from 2017 to 2019 was one of the best experiences I had in my professional career in terms of working with a group of people. I think we had 9 of us, plus Tom Mullen as the town attorney was at most of our meetings as well. And it was an incredibly enjoyable and productive experience serving on that bylaw review committee. It is a lot of work. It is going to last for a couple of years, especially as you tackle zoning this year. But I specifically asked to be the liaison to the bylaws review committee. And I was pleased as the most junior member of the town council that they appointed me to be the liaison because of my prior experience serving on the committee, as well as my interest in what you guys are going to be tackling during this session. Thank you.
And let's pass it on to Tim.
Good evening, everyone. Tim Lilly. Like some of you, I was born and raised in Wakefield. Grew up in Greenwood. A few years after college, moved back. So this is my first time on a border committee. So looking forward to working with all of you over the next couple of years. In my professional career, I'm an insurance broker. So looking at contracts for insurance reasons, but I'm not a lawyer by any means. But I look forward to digging in with all of you. And next, maybe Kevin York.
Hey, everyone. Kevin York. I've lived in Wakefield for 8 years, and I have 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. Professionally, I own a PR and marketing agency in Wakefield, so definitely not a lawyer, but some of our clients have operated in spaces sort of tangential to zoning, which really is what piqued my interest, as well as just contributing more to Wakefield as a resident and doing more to help it become an even better place to work and live. Next I see is Lisa.
And
hi, Lisa. It's wonderful to meet everybody. This is my first time serving on a committee, and I'm looking forward to it. I've lived in Wakefield actually 2 years. I moved in October of 2020. I am the director for the Office of Background Screening for the Archdiocese of Boston. I have also volunteered or currently volunteering at the Wakefield Food Pantry. So my interest in becoming a member of the Bylaw Review Committee is simply to learn more about the town, support the town, and see where it goes from there. But thank you for having me. Oh, the next person I see is Bob and Tracy.
looks like next is Lucy.
Oh, Lucy. Okay, sorry.
And Lucy, it looks like you're not connected with audio at the moment.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Now we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I am having Wi-Fi difficulties, so I'm on my phone for audio. Hello, my name is Lucy Fox. I've lived in Wakefield now since February of 2021, so relatively new. I'm from the North Shore. Very excited to be here to participate and just see who's engaged in the community and be involved in that. For work, I do project and program management. So I'm really curious about, and I've worked in healthcare space and fintech space, and I'm just kind of curious about how things get done, because I think there are a lot of, when it comes to process, you can kind of carry that through to whatever space. So hoping to kind of use some of that background to contribute, but also to learn from folks who have been engaged with the area. So thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome. We've got truly a very wide variety of backgrounds and interests which just in hearing everyone, it's really interesting. We've got people with backgrounds that date hundreds of years, obviously predating any of the people, but from all the way to people who have just joined the community. And I'm excited to work with each of you. So excellent. I'm also excited personally to get to know each of you over the next couple of years. As Bob mentioned, in the last time we did a bylaw review, we actually did get to know each other moderately well, and that was actually quite nice because it was an eclectic group of people that came together, and it was really a rewarding experience. So with that, one of the things we have to do, and this is a requirement by both our existing bylaws as well as state law, is we have to have a chair. The chair's responsibilities are really to handle the postings of meetings as well as to be the arbiter of decisions at meetings. So a chair typically is subservient to the committee's will itself. The chair is also responsible for making sure that administrative tasks get done. So things such as making sure that all the postings get done on time. The chair is responsible for making sure that has the appropriate items listed on it, and also becomes a liaison by default unless someone else is designated for other interactions. So making sure that invitations to the various other committees, boards, department heads, and others gets handled. And in this particular role, there's from prior experience, there's quite a bit of that goes on, but it is a subservient role to the board itself. It's not as if the chair has a big gavel or anything. In the town of Wakefield, we have no actual gavels that get used at any meetings other than town meeting that I'm aware of. Tom, you might know if there's a gavel that ever gets used. I have a feeling that it might not get used properly if it was used at other meetings, because sometimes people seem to get heated at an occasional meeting otherwise. So with that, we do need to have an election of a chair. We can potentially have a chair and a vice chair or co-chairs, but we do have to have a designation for that, and that will also get reflected on the website. So with that, thoughts? Open discussion.
I have a thought, Dan.
Sure.
I would nominate you to be chair. That is my thought. I think your experience and knowledge and just in getting this meeting together is wonderful. And I think you'll be a great chair.
So thank you. I will certainly accept it. Accept that nomination. I appreciate the confidence and kind words, Anne. Others, anyone else want to take on the roles and responsibilities? Eric?
Dan, I would second the nomination.
Okay.
I attended about 3/4 of your 40 meetings of the Bylaw Review Committee, and I know that one of the other members made a special point of writing out a praise of you and having the town moderator read it. So I point that out. It should be fun, committee.
Agreed. Any others? Anyone else wanted to take on a lot of responsibility and work? I nominate Tom if I could. I nominate Tom if I could.
No, I don't want that. Dan, I'd just like to speak up to say that few people in town have been as big a thorn in my side as you have been over the years. And yet I was so incredibly impressed with your service as chair on the first bylaw committee that I'm your biggest fan now. You showed a degree of doggedness and attention to detail that I would have expected. But beyond that, you also made absolutely everybody feel important and part of and valued. You really can't say anything better about a chairman than that.
Appreciate that. So, and I appreciate that a lot. And yes, I have taken delight in being a minor thorn in your side from time to time, but always respectful. Because for those of you who have not had the delight of working with Tom yet, we all will. Tom is among the brightest minds in the entire Commonwealth. And when it comes to municipal issues, he is unquestionably in the absolute top tier. So it's one of the things to get praise from Tom is actually really meaningful. So without saying that, we do have a motion that has been seconded. All in favor? We will actually need to have a verbal indication because this is by Zoom and that is an actual requirement. So with that, I'm just going to go by alphabetical as it's listed in the participants list. So with that, Anne?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Lucy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Tim? Tim, you're on mute at the moment.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. So thank you. That's unanimous. We now have that taken care of. So expectations at meetings. Some of these have actually been specified and codified by the last bylaw review committee. So amongst the things that was put in, and if you haven't looked at the bylaws, Chapter 9 is the section that governs bylaws, particularly the last half of it. So about section 19 through 27 will affect how the meetings are supposed to be run. And as a part of that, the general expectation is to be present, be prepared, be aware. And the first part of that, be present, is quite literal. For if someone is not present for 5 consecutive meetings by bylaw, they will be removed from the committee. And honestly, I don't wish that to be the case. If someone decides on their own volition the workload or for some other reason it is no longer appropriate, it is possible to drop from the committee. And I'm just mentioning that because it is something that does happen from time to time, and especially in a committee where there's likely to be a lot of work here. If you wanted to do that, it just requires writing a letter specifically to the town council. Please CC the chair, in that case me, on it, just stating that intention. And then ideally other people will take the place, but that is an option. But not attending, well, the reason why that was put in is because it affects quorum. That gets to the open meeting law. For us to have a meeting, we have to have a few things in place. And this is going to be, Tom in particular, since this is one of your areas of expertise, if you can make sure that I'm not missing anything too important and that I'm not getting anything wrong. For us to have a meeting, it has to be called properly, which means we have to have a posting that's done by the town clerk that will go on the website at least 2 business days in advance. That means not Saturday, Sundays, or legal holidays. And that posting has to have a list of items that we have to have. And we have to have the meeting itself. We have to have a quorum. Quorum in our case right now is 6 members. So it's more than 50%. And with 10 members, that would be 6 or more people have to be present. Whether they are in person or remote doesn't really matter at the current time. There are proposals before the state to allow us to continue Zoom past the current temporary expiration in July. But for the time being, by Zoom, works wonderful. At the moment, we've got 10 out of 10 members, which is awesome. Can I tell you, awesome. It's not all that common we get everyone, so I'm really, really delighted that we can do that. The other really important part of the open meeting law is around deliberation. Fancy word for saying discussion, talking with each other. We are allowed to talk with each other about topics, including things that we will discuss at meetings, as long as we don't have a discussion of a quorum, that would be 6 or more of us, in any way, that includes through people or otherwise, about something that is coming up for discussion. So if we're having a discussion on, say, zoning, something specific to zoning, like the size of a fence, I'm just picking something at random that hopefully is not going to be too controversial. Then if 6 of us were to have a discussion about how tall a fence would be, that would be improper. But if we were to say, okay, I like redwood fences, oh, I like wooden fences, I like metal fences, if it has nothing to do with it, perfectly fine. If you want to talk with 1 or 2 other people about something, that is perfectly okay, unless, of course, and there is a carve out here, if it creates a subcommittee. And we may have subcommittees for very specific elements, in which case it becomes a quorum of that subcommittee that's not allowed to discuss things that are in our subject area. That basically means anything around a bylaw. We are allowed to discuss scheduling and other components if you can't attend a meeting, or if you need something changed, or if you've got a general question, those can certainly be asked, and that's not a problem. One of the things that I will do as chair is if there's any significant issues, I will forward those on to whomever it is that is going to be able to give a definitive answer. So in terms of open meeting law, don't talk outside of meetings. At meeting, talk as much as you want within reason, and talk about the topics at heart. Please try to be prepared. And if there's something that you want discussed at a meeting, in some cases, if it's not on the agenda, it will get pushed to a future meeting. While that's not necessarily a mandatory requirement, it is one that is recommended. So with that, Anne, I can see your hand is raised.
I do. Just because we've had practice at this, it's not just talking. So emails that go out to everybody, you shouldn't discuss business on the email. So even if you send an email to the group and people reply, yes, no, not terribly engaged in the conversation, that's still a violation of the open meeting law if it's a quorum. Social media is the same thing. So if someone posts something on social media that has to do with our meetings, in a quorum of us comment on it, I think that's getting in dangerous ground. So just be careful. Those are new ways to violate the open meeting law that we learned in town council. So I would just be cautious of that.
And Bob?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I got to run to the town council meeting, but the one thing I did want to mention is your group is larger than the group that we had in 2017, and you're also dealing with the incredibly complex issue of zoning bylaws. My suggestion is you guys may want to contemplate having a vice chair as well, to help Dan out. Dan is very good if you're not very good with the computer, like I wasn't. He taught me how to receive things on Dropbox, how to open those documents up, how to print those documents if I needed them. But it was a tremendous amount of responsibility just placed on one person. And that's when we had a group, I think, of 7, and you guys have 10. So you may want to consider having a vice chair as well. And then I'm going to run because I got to get my car and drive down to the studio. Thank you all.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. I think that's a good suggestion. My thinking is that since that's an action item, that we should take that at the next meeting itself. And by all means, feel free to think about if that's a role that you would like to take on, because it is, as Bob is indicating, it's a fair amount of work, but it's also very rewarding. And I know I would certainly welcome to have it. One of the big responsibilities vice chair has is, in the event I can't attend something, that person needs to be able to step in to run the meeting itself. So to Anne's comments, which are spot on, deliberation includes talking in person, talking electronically, commenting on things on social media. Now, especially as we get into zoning, the Attorney General has been comment has been giving some opinions on this, that if it's a generally available thing, you are not prohibited from having discussions, even spirited discussions, if they're in a public sphere. But it can't appear to be in a closed manner. So the idea is you can't have a small private group where you have a discussion amongst the quorum. If it's only, a couple of people, not a problem. It's when you get to a quorum that it becomes a problem itself. Just seeing it and being exposed to it is not inherently a problem. So those are the rules. If you've got questions on this, feel free at any time, reach out to Tom. You now all have his email address because it's on everything. Tom is really, really good at answering these questions. They often tend to be fact specific, and he'll get you to the details that matter and then get you an answer on that. He can give an answer much better than I can on anything along those lines. So with that, anything else that is missed, Tom, that you can think of for open meeting law that is likely to apply to this group?
No, I think that does it. Thank you.
So with that, the stated purpose of the bylaw review committee. One of the things that I sent in the first email that I sent to everyone was a few links. One of those links is actually to the eCode website, which has a copy of the current bylaws. Tom works from an actual book. He's got the book itself that gets updated. He likes books. I do too, because you can see that I've got books behind me. But the actual book itself is what governs the actual bylaws. The online version is very much up to date for the most part. Last I checked, it did have the latest changes reflected. It also has the town charter. Charter section 7.5 specifically addresses our role. And this is where we're in a really interesting place. So the bylaw review committee, the town council shall at 5-year intervals, each year ending in a 2 or a 7. I think everyone here is smart enough to know which one we're ending in at the moment. Appoint a special committee for the purpose of reviewing the town bylaws and to make a report with recommendations to the town meeting concerning any proposed revision, recodification, or amendment which said committee may determine to be necessary or desirable. In plain English, my interpretation of that is we are supposed to read through the bylaws, review them, discuss them, have modifications, and there's an expectation that there will be recommendations, that things change and evolve over time. In this case, probably a recodification of zoning as an option, and then we can make an actual report or multiple reports to town meeting as appropriate, and town meeting ultimately makes the decisions on the bylaws. So we are actually a function of town meeting. We're legislative, which is different than town council, which is actually an executive branch. So if you think back to good old government and you've got the 3 branches of government, we are part of the legislative branch. We report directly to town meeting itself. Our service continues until such time as we literally hand the town moderator a packet that has our final report with recommendations. At that point, the town meeting will handle those recommendations and we are officially dissolved. Technically, we're dissolved as soon as it is in his hand, depending upon how close you want to get to it. But until that happens, we are going to have the privilege of working together on this as long as we can and in as much detail as we can get to. So that's our actual purpose. It is to really work on the bylaws, which are different than the charter, which are different than state law, different than federal law, and different than regulations that can be created or interpreted by the town council, board of health, building inspector, other school committee, other places where people and boards that have authority to create regulations. Those are outside of our scope. Our scope is really the bylaws themselves. And so I do recommend that you create a link to the Wakefield bylaws because you're likely to go back and forth. You are not expected to be an expert in everything bylaw related. The only person on here that has that responsibility is Tom Mullen. He gets to read, review, reinterpret those bylaws on an almost daily basis, but he gets paid to do that. We just get aggravation and friendship and the joy of working together, knowing that we're making our community a better place. So that is our actual goal. If you have any questions, always refer back to section 7.5 of the charter. That's where we're getting our actual authority. The town council may at its discretion from time to time add members to our committee. If that happens, then we will welcome them in at such time. So that's the actual purpose. As part of that, one thing that happened at this past town meeting is that there was an article that passed that allowed that with the intent for us to have funds available to hire a special counsel, special lawyer at Tom Mullen's recommendation for the express purpose of recodification of the zoning bylaws. I believe that amount was $50,000 that was actually budgeted for the fiscal year. So that would start on Friday this year on July 1st, run through June 30th. And if that term were to expire, or need to be extended, we could go back to town meeting to request that. So this is something that has been contemplated and discussed by town meeting, and is something that the last bylaw review committee specifically recommended that we go forward with. I'm glad to see that we are at that stage. So that's the express purpose. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
I have a question.
Go for it, Eric.
Perhaps it's on the previous one. Is public participation possible at the meetings?
Public participation, the way that I tend to run meetings, public participation is always possible and welcome at meetings. It's typically put it towards the beginning of most agenda items. I anticipate, given the nature of what we will be discussing, it may get moved around from time to time, but as the person responsible for the meetings itself, I encourage the public to participate, including in discussions. If someone from the public is disrespectful in any way or taking up effectively too much time, then I may take the what's sometimes referred to as the chair's liberty to have the ability to cut them off if necessary, or put a time limit on non-members' participation. But the idea is to absolutely get as much input into items as we can get. When we had the bylaw review committee of 2017, we had a lot of input from people, and a lot of wonderful changes came about as a result of people coming and actually talking at meetings. So if you know of people who have things they want to say, especially as they get posted to the agenda, fantastic. If it's not relevant for that agenda item, typically gets pushed to a different week or a different month, whatever the meeting schedule happens to be. So with that, I know you're going to have to be leaving here, Tom, momentarily as well.
And I
Yeah,
just say, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I just say we should take attendance of those who attending the meetings, just to show their interest if they're going to be on the committee later on or fill a vacancy or whatever. Oh, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dan, I have to go off to the town council meeting just as Bob Vincent did, but I look forward to working with you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Great. Bye-bye.
So with that, we have only one more material item on the schedule, and that is the future meeting schedule, unless anyone else wants to address anything on the stated purpose of the meeting or other points.
Well, I should like to take a couple minutes, if I may. Do I have it?
You can take a couple minutes as long as it's on point.
In 2008, we had a town meeting vote for funds when they didn't have the reasons for it. The next day, scheduled meeting of the moderator with the Charter Review Commission, and he talked about how that was not possible. And the program in the Finance Committee bulletin talked about the procedure of town meeting, and it didn't describe at all the procedure of Proposition 2.5, and it said that the charter was run by Cushing's Manual, though the town meeting was run by Cushing's Manual, though it was Robert's Rules. So I was embarrassed in writing voting the wrong way. So I talked to Tom Mullen and we came out with the new version that appears in the Finance Committee bulletin. And I also got concerned with what took place in the town reports. And so I voted, passed an article to have a committee study that, and only I applied. So I applied again the next year and no one did it again. So in essence, the town administrator said, you're a one-man committee. Submit the whole list. So I submitted the whole list and what was submitted was passed. And then it was later modified with making births, marriages, and deaths anonymous, you know, just by number rather than anything else. So there are a couple of other places where I would like to modify the town report, the list of the town report. And so that would be a subcommittee, I think, of this committee. And the liaison member who has gone to the town council meeting has a number of ideas of improving the town conversations. And I talked to him, but did not mention any specifics. So there's automatically, I would say, a subcommittee to consider this. But I let you think about this and the others too.
So what I'm taking from your comments, Eric, is that we will want to have a discussion on the section of the bylaws that specifically deals with the annual report. Yeah. And how that piece comes up. We may want to have a subcommittee to discuss different elements of it as we approach that piece, which I think that when we have the discussion of that section, we'll definitely want to figure out what makes the most sense at that time. That's what I'm taking. Am I understanding your recommendation correctly?
Yeah, that sooner or later we have a subcommittee discuss this section 51, I think it is, on town reports.
That is correct. It's chapter 51. We'll have that. We'll have discussion as we get to chapter 51, which it certainly isn't going to be at this meeting, but we'll be in,
of course.
Yeah. So I think that's something, if you can bring it up when we get to, as we start discussing chapter 51, I think that will make a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, thoughts? So that brings us to the easiest and hardest issue of all. And that's coming up with, when can people meet? Obviously, we all figured out how to do it on a Monday at 6 o'clock. Monday evenings can work well. I know that Tom Mullen and Bob Vincent typically have town council meetings every other Monday. Typically, is it the first and third or second and fourth? I'm trying to remember.
Typically second and fourth, but not always consistent.
So typically Mondays at 7 o'clock or 7:30 is when they will have to have their meetings for town council. And that if we like Mondays at 6, it will probably just mean that we will often have meetings that will continue on somewhere as we approach 7 o'clock, just especially for meetings where we need Tom Mullen's expertise. We won't probably want to have much material discussion without him present. He is an amazing legal mind, and he's ultimately responsible for interpreting anything that comes out of bylaws and understanding the intent for it. Catherine.
I'm just curious how long, in your experience, having been on this last time, how long the meetings typically run for? I know this one was scheduled for an hour, but do they typically go for 2 hours? Like, how long do the meetings typically run?
That's a fantastic question, and I don't know that there is a typical answer overall. It will depend a lot on the subject matter. I think that over time we will start to get a handle on where things are. In practice by Zoom, I try not to have meetings last too long due to the Zoom fatigue that we all get of constantly watching over things. It's different than in person. In person, the meetings did tend to last on average between 90 and 120 minutes, but some lasted almost 3 hours. and some were very short, as in only an hour. But on Zoom, I try to keep things relatively short in practice, just so that people don't get too fatigued on that. An hour, by the same token, doesn't give enough time for a really meaningful discussion on a variety of topics. So it's kind of a balancing act to figure that out. So if that gives any indication. Joseph?
Hey, Dan. I guess my question would be, are we gonna plan on doing this twice a month, every Monday, first and third? What was your thoughts on that? Is that something, are we doing it every Monday, or is it, like I said, first and third?
Personally, I think every Monday would be overly exhausting on all of us. Just throwing that out there. The town does have a tradition of having less meetings through the summer months of July and August.
Exactly.
It does not mean no meetings. It just usually means fewer. The last bylaw review, we typically did about 2 meetings a month, but sometimes it would be 3. I don't think we ever did more than that in practice. Part of it is there's material, and as we get into zoning, there will probably be more material than we can each want to deal with in reviewing in preparation for the meetings. We want to have time for that. So my gut is every week will be too often. There may be extra meetings right before we do presentations to town meeting. So that's when I would suggest be prepared for some minor schedule disruption. As long as we have the ability to continue using Zoom, hopefully that will be minimal disruption to each of our lives. That's my thoughts on it.
Okay, yeah, so then we could come up with something like a first and third or opposite of town council meeting. If we're gonna keep it on a Monday, I don't know how Mondays work for other people, but you know, that would be my suggestion. Second and fourth, you know, whatever. That's all.
So certainly a good idea. Alex, you had your hand up as well.
I had the same question as Joe and then the exact same suggestion, so.
Okay. Other thoughts to try and basically do an offset of town council? Which
yeah, I would say offset of town council is important because Tom Mullen is the smartest man in our town. If someone suggests there's someone smarter, they just haven't met Tom. He is brilliant and such a good man. So I think he's going to be such an integral part of making sure that we're staying within the lines for reviewing the bylaw. So I think offsetting town council meetings is important.
I have no problems following that suggestion, and I wholeheartedly agree. He's absolutely brilliant. And
would a different night work instead of a Monday where that's predominantly town council night in case they do have more than the 2 meetings a month? Where how Ann said that they sometimes the meetings aren't always the second and fourth.
Yeah. Typically, Alex, they would be. The only time it might get shifted, it wouldn't upend that. It might, if like July 4th, for example, is a Monday, they might have a meeting on a Thursday. So I think we would be safe on the first and third. And if we needed to shift, chair could certainly do that. But that's a good point.
Agreed. And we'll certainly adjust as necessary. And with the power of Zoom, if you miss a meeting, you can have the joy of watching it later and or reading the minutes. Well, actually, you'll probably need to do both because we have to vote on the minutes at the next meeting. So that's one of the things that does get to happen. You don't have to watch. Technically, you don't have to watch the meeting to read the minutes and be able to vote on them, but watching the meeting will give you a much fuller idea of what the discussion is. And so recommended, but not required. So first and third Monday, in terms of timing for people, obviously 6 o'clock worked, although I'm aware that can certainly cause a conflict with meals and things like that. If people have many committees choose to start at 7 for that reason. If there's a preference for that, I'm certainly open to thoughts. Starting at 6, I don't have a strong preference personally. Catherine?
I would have a preference to 7. I can make 6 work if that's what people prefer, but just for family meal times, it's sometimes a little bit more helpful to push it a little bit later.
I agree with the 7 o'clock.
7 works.
Yeah, I like 7.
Sounds great.
Tom, Kevin, Lucy, Lisa?
7's fine.
7's fine.
I like 7.
Okay, so I think we've got a general meeting schedule, and as Ann and Alex had both commented, it will absolutely get disrupted from time to time. I can state that with absolute certainty because it's just the way that life gets in the way. From Monday holidays, the first Monday in September tends to be Labor Day, so we wouldn't have a meeting on Labor Day itself if avoidable. Generally it is, and so we'll move things around. As chair, I'll just be in touch with each person. I will use different tools as necessary just so we can try to find alternative times that we can get a quorum. Because if you can't attend a meeting, please let me know, because if we know that we're going to fail to have a quorum at a meeting, the meeting will be canceled. And that's not something that we ever hope to have. But if you know you can't make it to a meeting, which life does get in the way, and that's okay. We all do have lives. If we know that we have to cancel a meeting, it's important to be able to release it for the rest of the people as well. So that's the real reason that I'm asking, is so that people don't hold those times. But otherwise, you can put in a repeating meeting for the first and third Mondays at 7 p.m. And for the time being, they're going to be on Zoom just because that's a requirement of the town. Catherine, hey, your hand's still up. Okay, put the hand down. Just like in school, just put the hand down, have the power to do that.
So would that start the 18th of July?
So for July, that would put us to the 18th as being the third Monday. I'm thinking one meeting in July, one meeting in August, just to try and get things underway, further organization. I do have some spreadsheets and so forth that we can use as basis for keeping things organized. If you take a look at the last town report, if you don't have it, I'm going to ask that it get reposted to the town website for the bylaw review committee. I'll send everyone, we do have a link to that. And I'll ask that the last town report have it from the bylaw review committee, because it has a listing of all of the work that got done and specific recommendations. So Monday, July 18th, is everyone planning on, is there anyone who knows that they cannot be there, is a better way of putting it? Okay, looks like we've got 7/18. The next one that we would be looking at would be in August. I'm looking at the third Monday in August would be August 15th.
I know I can't make that.
Anyone else? Okay, with only one, it looks like we will try to keep that schedule. Again, for others, if it turns out that life gets in the way, you wind up winning the lottery or something else, and you're going to be in a much more tropical place, although Wakefield will be tropical in August, but a much more tropical place, and having much more fun than attending a municipal meeting, and you'd like us to know about it, at least for quorum purposes, please let us know. If you win the lottery and want to share, that's always welcome too. Not expected, but certainly not going to be a bad thing. We can't do it because of our position. That would be an ethics violation. You probably learned about that when you fill out all the ethics paperwork. Along those lines, last thing I have is, if you haven't submitted a copy of your 2 documents to the town clerk, please do so just by email to Betsy Sharon. And the 2 documents that she needs is a copy of the completion certificate from state ethics. That would have been in the link from Sherry Dalton. If you haven't completed it, just do it online. It's a cute little course. It should take you probably in the neighborhood of around an hour and a half total. It does not have to be done all at once. although it's easiest if it is, and it'll have a certificate that you can save as a PDF or print at the very end, and just send a copy of that to town clerk. The other document that is required is a document that certifies that you have been received and read through a short version of the open meeting law. And that is also a requirement by state law so that you're at least aware that there is a thing called the open meeting law and that we are bound by it. I sent in a link to some of the information on each of these. They are to be taken seriously. State ethics is really significant, as is open meeting law, because we want to make sure that there's no questions about people having the ability to contribute, that everything is done transparently, that people can see what's happening, and that as people will see the outputs and the outcomes that we come up with as a group, that there's no question that this is an involved process. People may choose to participate or watch from time to time, and the more involvement we get, the better. But it's really important for the integrity of the process that we all have integrity as well. So I highly encourage to get all of those pieces in, and you don't need to, there's no accountability to me personally at all about doing that. You're accountable to yourself for it. And so that's just a note on that. That's part of why in the welcome email that I sent to each person, that I just reminded you of those pieces. So with that, any final comments?
Thank you for keeping us organized.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I can tell you I will do my best. I will not always succeed completely, guaranteed. I am human, despite my mother sometimes claiming otherwise. But I am indeed human. And with that, thank you all for attending. Greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to meeting with you all on July 18th. You all have my contact information. It's in the emails. If you have email addresses for each other. If you ever have any questions or anything about how things are done, feel free to reach out. Text is typically among the easiest ways to reach me. If it's significant, feel free to reach out by email. You will see an email coming from me shortly from a different email address for all formal communications, and that will come from Bylaw Review Committee at wakefieldma.us. That is where I will send out the future information. You may have noticed that it was CC'd on these notes. That's so that in the future, if there's ever any questions about records, anything related to bylaw review should go to that address so that it can be searched and retrieved in the future. We are all bound by the Mass Records Law, and that becomes an easy way for the town to retrieve things. So you'll see those emails as well. So thank you all. Greatly appreciate you joining us. And we've kept the meeting to under an hour. So welcome aboard. Welcome to the bylaw review. Thank you for your service.
Thanks, Dan.
And we will see you in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, happy 4th of July.
That's good.
Thanks. Happy
Thank you.
4th.
Take care.
Thank you.
Nice meeting
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Take care.